previously appointed.
Yes, sir.
You may proceed.
State your name, please.
Alan Killingsworth,
And how are you employed?
with the Wichita Falls Police Department,
And how long have you been so employed?
26 years.
And so you're a licensed peace officer in the state of Texas?
Yes, ma'am.
And how long have you been so licensed?
Since February of 1993.
And officers have different types of licenses, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And what type of license do you hold?
I hold a Master's Peace Officer's license.
And is that the highest level you can hold?
Yes, ma'am.
And Detective Killingsworth, while you've been employed by the Wichita Falls Police Department, can you tell this jury what sections you've been involved with in the police department?
For my first 13 years, I was a patrol officer, and in 2006, I was moved to misdemeanors. I was a misdemeanor detective for about 6 months. Moved at that point to juvenile division, and I worked crimes against children as a detective for a little over 3 years, and then in 2009, I was transferred to the crimes against persons unit, which is where I currently serve.
And the crimes against person unit, what type of offenses do you investigate?
We investigate all kinds of felony offenses against adults, everything from aggravated assaults, which are all assaults that someone uses a weapon or somebody suffers serious bodily injury, sexual assaults, homicides, suicides, all unattended deaths. This pretty much runs the gamut.
Okay, and are cases, how many detectives are there in the crimes against person unit?
6.
And who oversees that unit?
Currently, Sergeant Brian Sheehan.
And how do cases get assigned to a specific detective, excuse me?
Typically, we, as the 6 of us that are in our unit, we go on call every 6 weeks. From Friday at 4 o'clock till the next Friday at 4 o'clock, we're on call as the primary detective. And anything that happens during that week, whether it's a call out or what, after hours call out or something that happens on duty, during duty hours, we get assigned that case. There are exceptions to that, but that's typically how we get assigned cases. And then just during our normal work week, cases that happen that we don't get called out on, our sergeant just assigns us those cases as they come in.
And let's say a murder occurs in Wichita Falls, and you're assigned that murder case.
Mm-hmm.
Do the other detectives work with you as a team to investigate that murder case?
Yes, ma'am. The larger the scale of the investigation, the more detectives that get called in to assist. It can be anywhere from just you by yourself, if it's not that much involved in the investigation, or 2 or 3 or all 6 of us sometimes.
And while you've been a detective in the crimes against person unit, have you investigated few or many murders?
For Wichita Falls, I would say many.
And then with regard to the juvenile section of the police department and detectives, what types of crimes do they investigate?
It's almost just a mirror image of crimes against persons. It's just that they investigate all crimes against juveniles. So the same things, death investigations involving juveniles, homicides involving juveniles, assaults, sexual assaults, almost the exact same thing. It's just the age difference.
Okay, so you have that where the offender is a juvenile under the age of 17, then they're assigned those types of cases, correct?
Correct. They are assigned cases where the offender is a juvenile, and they're also, most of the time, assigned cases where the victim is a juvenile as well. Even if it's an adult offender, if it's a victim juvenile, usually they're assigned those cases.
And how many murders have they investigated within the past, I'd say 5 years, if you know, just ballpark? Has that juvenile unit investigated where there's an adult murder of a child victim?
It would be difficult to give a ballpark figure, but it's very few. It's in the past 5 years, probably 1 or 2.
Is it safe to say the bulk of their cases are aggravated sexual assault of children?
Yes, ma'am.
And so they specialize in those types of cases?
Yes, ma'am.
And so I'm going to direct your attention to September 2nd of 2016. And were you working that day?
Yes, ma'am.
And what, approximately 3:30 in the afternoon on that Friday, what information did you receive, if anything?
There were 3 of us in the office that afternoon, and it's nearing the end of our workday. It's pretty much 30 minutes before the end of our workday on a Friday, and we received information that there had been shooting. And so the 3 of us that were there started pretty much scurrying around trying to find out some more details. The way you do that is we get on our computer system and we're able to look up what the patrol officers out on the scene are responding to at that time. And the next information we got very quickly was that it was a school shooting. A lot of the information you receive immediately when something like this happens is misinformation. You have to kind of work through that. But we thought what we heard was that it was a school shooting at McNeil Junior High. And so obviously we began mobilizing and deciding to, respond out there. Honestly, on that particular day, our supervisor wasn't at work. I think he had been at work earlier that day, but he wasn't at work at that moment. His supervisor was at work, our lieutenant. And so we coordinated with our lieutenant, the 3 of us that happened to be in the office, and said, we are heading in that direction to find out what we've got, what's going on. So that's what happened.
And so when you arrived on scene, did you know the ages of the victim?
I learned very quickly the ages of the victim. On the way there, I did not know. As soon as I got there, I remember hearing their ages. Yes, ma'am.
How many victims were there?
2.
And what were their ages?
13.
And so knowing that, would that type of case been assigned to someone in crimes against person?
Not typically.
And in this case, was this case or this offense that occurred on September 2nd assigned to a detective in juvenile or crimes against person?
It was, this all got figured out on scene about an hour or 2 into the investigation. It got figured out by our supervisors that they were going to assign the case to the juvenile detective who was on call at that time. And I was actually going on call at 4 o'clock that day. And so they assigned me to assist him in the investigation.
Okay. And that detective that was assigned that case that day, what is his name?
Detective Vermillion.
Walt Vermillion?
Yes, ma'am.
And the reason that you were assigned to work the case with Walt Vermillion, is that because you've worked a number of murders?
Yes, ma'am. I was just more experienced than Walt and had investigated cases like this many times before, and he didn't have quite as much as experience. So they told me right there on the scene that I was going to assist him all along the way in the investigation.
And how many times would you say that you've taken a statement from a suspect?
Hundreds, if not thousands.
And you've been trained to do that?
Yes, ma'am.
And in that training, do they teach you different tools regarding how to get suspects to be forthright with you and tell you the details of an offense?
Sure, we're taught, techniques in just rapport building, and which if you build a rapport with somebody, you're more likely to be able to obtain the information that you're seeking to gain.
And do you utilize those tools?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you have an occasion to speak with a Kody Lott?
Yes, ma'am. And
how did that occur?
2 days into the investigation on September 4th, which was a Sunday, the main detectives that were working on this case had worked late into the night on September 2nd, and then come back in first thing in the morning on September 3rd and worked all day September 3rd. And then we had planned on coming in at about noon on September 4th, which we did. And during a meeting with lots of the upper heads of the Wichita Falls Police Department, and we were involved in this meeting, we were advised that there had been a traffic stop made by some patrol officers, and that there was a possible suspect in this crime involved in this traffic stop. So we left that meeting and went to that location of that traffic stop.
And so the murder and aggravated assault that occurred on that Friday, on a scale for Wichita County, Wichita Falls, the city of Wichita Falls, would you consider that a small case or a large case?
Large.
And it's high profile?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you know if the victims had known the suspect?
That's what we were trying to determine all, Friday afternoon, Friday night, all day Saturday is what and at that time we did not have any indication that there was any kind of relationship there, or that the victim knew the suspect. No, ma'am.
Does that make it more difficult when you're investigating a murder?
Yes, ma'am. It opens it up to anyone. Anyone could have done this, because we had pretty much at that point, I'd say, ruled out most of the opportunity for it to have been someone that the victim knew.
And were you aware if all leads had been exhausted, and so they were thinking about bringing in a sketch artist?
Yes, ma'am.
And about that time is when the traffic stop occurred?
Yes, ma'am.
And then once you received information about the traffic stop, what was the location of the person that was pulled over?
I'm not exactly sure of the block number of Southwest Parkway, but it was on Southwest Parkway near Brookdale, in a shopping center.
If somebody said Brahms,
It was in the parking lot of Brahms on Southwest Parkway. Yes, ma'am.
And then the suspect was arrested for prohibited weapons because of brass knuckles.
That's correct.
And did you ask the patrol officer to bring the suspect to the Wichita Falls Police Department to be interviewed?
Yes, ma'am.
And did they do that?
Yes.
And did you in fact interview the suspect, Kody Lott?
Yes.
And where did you interview him?
That took place in the Crimes Against Persons interview room, which is equipped with audio and video equipment to record the interview, and it was also recorded on just a digital recorder as a backup system.
And was the defendant, Kody Lott, or suspect, then free to leave at any time and go to jail for the prohibited weapon?
Yes.
And Detective, before speaking to the defendant, Kody Lott, did you advise him of his constitutional rights in connection with his privilege against self-incrimination?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you advise the defendant of his right to have an attorney?
Yes.
Did you advise the defendant of his right to remain silent?
Yes.
Did you advise the defendant that anything he said could be used against him?
Yes.
Did you advise the defendant his right to have an attorney present prior to and during his interview
Yes.
or questioning? Did you advise the defendant of his right to have an attorney appointed to him to advise him prior to and during his questioning?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you advise the defendant of his right to terminate the interview at any time?
Yes.
And how did you advise the defendant of those rights?
I read the rights from a rights waiver form that had spaces next to each one of the rights. First of all, you read thing at the top of it that tells them what you're doing and why you're doing it, and that they have the, right to leave and everything like that. And then you read them their rights, each one individually, and ask them after each one of them if they understand and they have the ability, and then you ask them to put their initials next to that particular right, and what you did.
And then you would sign that document and put your badge number?
Yes, ma'am.
And dated also?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you also have a witness that would also sign their name and their badge number?
Yes.
And approach, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me show you what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 253 and ask you if you recognize that document.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And what is that document?
That's the rights waiver form that I read to Mr. Lott.
In which you dated and you timed?
Yes.
And who was your witness?
Detective Vermillion.
Okay. And this is a true and accurate copy of the waiver of rights under Code of Criminal Procedure 3822 that you had Kody Lott sign freely, voluntarily, and knowingly?
Yes, ma'am.
This time the state would offer what's been marked for identification purposes as State's Exhibit 253.
Subject to the court's prior ruling, no objection, Your Honor.
It is admitted subject to that prior ruling.
And the person that you had signed that waiver form, is he in the courtroom today?
Yes, ma'am.
And can you identify him in the courtroom?
Yes, ma'am. He's sitting right here at the first table with a gray shirt on.
I'd ask that the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant wrong.
The record will so reflect.
And from the date that you spoke to him, interviewed him on September 4th of 2016 until today, does he look different?
Yes, ma'am.
And what's different about today than when you saw him that 2 days after the offense?
His hair is much longer.
And was he more clean shaven at that time during your interview?
Yes, ma'am. He was clean shaven, and his hair was much shorter and seemed lighter colored at the time.
And did the defendant indicate he understood each of the rights that you advised him?
Yes, ma'am.
And after you advised the defendant of his constitutional rights, did he indicate to you that he would agree to waive his constitutional rights and speak to you?
Yes, ma'am.
And you asked the defendant if he would agree to speak to you and give a statement, correct?
Yes.
And did he do that intelligently, knowingly, and freely?
Yes.
Did he appear to be under any delusions or mental illness at the time?
No.
Wasn't acting crazy?
No.
And did the defendant in fact agree to provide a statement to you?
Yes.
At any time during the taking of the statement from the defendant, did he request an attorney?
No.
At any time during the taking of the statement from the defendant, did he ask that the interview cease?
No.
At any time, did you coerce or threaten the defendant into giving a statement?
No.
Did you deny the defendant any basic necessities such as restroom, food, or cigarettes?
No.
Did the defendant appear to be under the influence of any narcotic, drug, or alcohol?
No.
And at any time during the statement or interview that you were getting from the defendant, had he appeared to be under any type of delusion or having any type of mental health issue and not understand your questions, what would you have done?
I would have terminated the interview.
And you did not terminate the interview in this case, did you?
No, ma'am.
This time the state would offer Exhibit 4, which is a full copy of the statement given by Kody Lott on September 4th of 2016.
Court's Exhibit 4 is admitted for the record.
And at this time, the state would offer what's been marked, Detective Killingsworth, did you have an opportunity to view State's Exhibit, the court exhibit and State's Exhibit 252?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and is that a true and accurate copy on State's Exhibit 252 with the redactions as directed by the court?
Yes, ma'am.
This time, the state would offer what's been marked as State's Exhibit 252.
Subject to no objection, Your Honor.
It's admitted subject to the prior ruling.
I ask that I be allowed to publish this. Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm told that this statement exceeds 3 hours. We will listen to it till about noon, take our lunch break, and then continue with it when we come back. You may proceed. Can everyone hear that?
Okay, I'm Detective Killingsworth, from West Office Police Department. This is Detective Lott with West Office Police Department, okay? I don't know you, so what is your last name spelled? Lott, L-O-T-T. What's your first name? Kody, K-O-D-Y. What's your middle name? Austin, A-U-S-T-I-N. And what's your date of birth? 1796. How old are you right now? 20 years old, sir. And what is your address, Cody? 2203 FM 1285, Seymour, Texas, 76380, I believe. What? 380. Okay. What's the phone number I can reach you? My personal cell phone number is 940-923-2370. And my mom's is 940-224-4245. Yeah, that's your mom's cell phone number? The second one, which she's like the one that takes care of me and stuff. That we do everything, like, yeah, I'm on my phone. Oh, all right. What's her name? Reliable. Christy Rowland, K-R-I-S-T-I, Rowland, R-O-L-A-N-D. So you must live with her in Seymour? Well, I live with my grandmother in Seymour, but I come to wish all the like right now my parents, my mom and stuff, they're on vacation and we do that stuff. Okay, all right. Where do you work? I don't work, sir. Are you a student? No. Okay. Okay, Cody, since they stopped you out there on Southwest Parkway and placed you under arrest for an offense at this point, which I'm not really interested in, I still have to read you your rights because you're not free to go, okay? As soon as you leave, you're going to go to jail for that offense that they stopped you for. Do you understand that? Okay, so I'm gonna fill out this document and read it to you, and I've already stated today's date is 9/4/16, and now it's 2:45. Like I was asking that officer, is there any way, like, and I'll go to a site board, is there any way I can get, like, a room by myself or something? At jail? Yeah. So I was completely, okay? That's something we're going to get you to talk to the jailers about when you get over there. I mean, like, I tried to last time. Oh, really? Yeah, they can carry this through me, and jail, but we can highly suggest to them that they work with you, man. Okay?
That's the only thing, man, like, I have to be alone here.
Exactly.
You know, I'm a little.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely, I'll get the officer that takes you over there to stress that to him and make that suggestion, okay? If we had anything more than that to do with it, I'd certainly help you out, okay? Okay, let me read this to you, okay? Are you listening?
Yes, sir.
All right. It says, I, Kody Lott, date of birth 1/7/96, do hereby this date waive my rights voluntarily, without duress, coercion, unlawful influence or inducement, or promise of reward, clemency, or immunity. I have by my signature read and do understand the following. That, number one, I have the right to remain silent and not make any statement at all, and that any statement I make may be used against me at trial. You understand that? Okay, I'm going to give you this pen. Beside number one, put your initials, indicating that you understand that. Yeah, there's a space there actually. And number two says, any statement I make may be used as evidence against me in court. You understand that? Okay. Number three, I have the right to have a lawyer present to advise me prior to and during any question. You understand? What's your initial? And number four, if I am unable to employ a lawyer, I have the right to have a lawyer appointed to advise me prior to and during any question. And number five, I have the right to terminate this interview at any time. You understand that? Good. Initials about five. And then it says signature up there, so sign your name. And put today's date. What is today? Today's the 4th, September 4th. Is it the 8th? So it's 9, 4, 16. Okay, Kody. We read your rights, and told you you're going to go to jail after this for charges that they So, keeping those in mind, we'd like to ask you some questions about a case we're investigating, okay? You understand?
And what are going to be like any benefits, like what would be any point in me wanting to discuss anything like that?
Well, basically just to help us out, okay?
I want to help myself if I can do that.
Yeah.
Help y'all out if y'all can help me out. I just don't like have to be in solitary, man.
Right. And that's the main thing I'm going to work on. When you're ready to go here, from here, I'm going to talk to the officer that takes you over there and see if we can get you definitely put in someplace by yourself, okay? Look, you don't go to school right now and you don't work anywhere, right? Okay, you live in Seymour. What brings you to Wichita Falls?
Well, my mom and I said that on vacation, right, it was 7 nights ago. I just came to check on their dog today and give her some water and pick up some money that my mom had gotten her, asked her friend to leave me for food, water, gas. That's why I needed to put gas in my car.
Okay, so, right before the officer stopped you on Southwest Parkway, right beside Brahms, where had you been before that?
Santa Fe Apartments,
Santa Fe Apartments?
Hadley Bay.
Okay. Immediately prior to them stopping you, you had just come from the Santa Fe Apartments?
Yeah.
How'd you get over there? What route?
What route did I get to the Santa Fe Apartments?
Went from the Santa Fe Apartments to over there by Brahms. I mean, it's kind of
Seymour Road, or Seymour Road, so that's the Seymour Highway, and then Barnett.
right? Okay. Seymour Road, Seymour Highway, and then all the way up Barnett Road, Southwest Parkway. Am I spot on? So
Straight up Barnett Road, because I turned in Fountain Gate Apartments off Barnett Road.
Okay. I misunderstood you then. So you did, so right prior to the stopping, you came from the Fountain Gate Apartments?
Yes. I thought you were asking me, okay. So yeah, okay, Santa Fe Apartments, Fountain Gate, and then...
And what were you doing at the Santa Fe Apartments?
Well, my mom has an apartment there that, she lets me stay at and stuff when I need just to be by myself, because that's what I was trying to I just have to be by myself.
Is it where she lives? Is it her apartment?
It's in her name. It's just when she opened up for me, so I would, I would have some place when I come to Wichita, because they don't like me to stay there. If I come to visit,
Yeah.
just okay, here's you a little sheet just for one room to seclude so.
So it's in Christy Rowland's name?
Yes.
Okay. And, it's not in your name at all? It's not Christy Rowland and
I think
Kody Lott?
my follow is, I'm not 100% sure on the lease.
On the lease, on the apartment lease?
Like, to me, like, that's just her apartment, like,
Okay, but she doesn't live there at all? Where does she live?
Fountain Gate.
Oh, she lives in the same complex, but not in that
Santa
same.
Fe is way down the road, and that's Avenue K, Santa Fe Apartments, and she lives on Fountain Gate.
So Santa Fe Apartments is where you have an apartment that's just in your name?
No, it's in her name, I guess.
Right, okay.
So, like,
So, you sometimes stay in an apartment in Santa Fe Apartments that Christy Rowland has leased for you. It's a place that you can just kind of be there.
it's hers that she lets me use.
I got you. But your mother actually lives and resides in Fountain Gate Apartments. I got you. Which apartment number?
Her apartment at Fountain Gate is 179.
And who does she live there with?
Brian Rowland, her husband, and that's it. B-R-Y-A.
Okay, and they're in Ruidoso right now.
Yes, sir.
How long have they been in Ruidoso?
They left like Wednesday or Thursday or Tuesday, early as last week.
How long have they been there? You said they were there
It's a Yorkie, a silver Yorkie, it's a small silver Yorkie.
Okay, so that's, what you were doing over there is taking care of their dog?
Yeah, I was checking the welfare of the dog, and then, yeah,
And, how often did you go over there to do that?
once a week probably, I come and just see, I go to the.
No, I mean, while they're out of town.
While they're out of town, I've only been over there once,
When was that?
yesterday.
Saturday?
Yes,
Saturday, Sunday? So,
I get lost in my days now.
yeah, but they left on like Wednesday or Thursday or something?
Yeah, they left early this week.
So who was taking care of the Yorkie?
They left this Saturday, and I go up doing my food stuff to survive, you know.
Right.
And I gave my stepbrother, man, like, I don't know, Jordan Rowland, like, that's what I'm saying, like, my mom just helps me, man, like, I'm just a nuisance to her, man, like, I'm not involved in the family thing, I don't know, you know, they might have stepbrother, she has friends.
What's your stepbrother's name?
Jordan Rowland, and they have.
How old is he?
There are the people that do that is not.
Yeah, I got you. Sure.
He's like 26 or something, man.
Where does he live?
I don't know, he lives in some apartment, I've seen on highway or something, and,
You have anything to do with him or y'all?
I mean, we're cool, man, but we are like, that's what I'm saying, man, like, I've just totally, like, I'm by myself, man, I'm on my own, and every night, like, I have to, my mom is the only person that has been helping me.
Yeah, okay.
That has had anything to do with me.
Right, okay. So maybe Jordan was taking care of the dog.
Yeah,
You weren't.
Yeah, I'm almost right there.
So there's no set schedule that you told your mom or she asked you to go by please every day, 3 times a
She
day?
didn't know I was gonna go back today, but there was no say, I have a key and stuff, so I, you know.
Okay, so you went by there today, checked on the Yorkie. How long were you there? Like,
Just came, I just walked in and walked out. I walked in, gave the dog some food, water, walked out.
and did you have to, they've got food there, did you have to take any food with you or anything, or
No.
did you take anything else in there
If
with
my
you?
mom had a friend, leave $50 for me to get some food, water, gas.
And did you pick that up today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When you went in there today, was anybody with you or anything?
No.
Did you take anything in there with you?
I took my blanket in there to wash. My comforter, my dad's comforter, just a blanket to sleep on, and stuff, just to wash it. That's where I do my laundry, is at their house.
Oh, did you start that to wash? Did you start the washer?
No.
Didn't? So you left the blanket there?
Yeah, I just left it.
Okay. Anything else that you had with you in your hands when you were in there, other than a blanket? Was it just folded up or wadded up? Or
Yeah, I just had a blanket, just wrapped up, like, folded up, because I grabbed the blanket.
Okay. There wasn't anything else, nothing else. Okay, so you were in there for 10 minutes or whatever, got some money they left you, got your blanket off. Are you going to go back and do your laundry
so I was like, fuck it. I threw the blanket, grabbed the money, and I've been cold starting out putting on the opiates. I got 3 months, 4 months of taking like 100 milligrams of opiates every day.
Right. Now, what kind of opiates?
I get going on.
Okay. And you mentioned smoking some weed. Somebody else, but you're kind of saying you're coming off of it or something.
Yeah.
Been had any available or anything, or what?
Yeah, I've run out of money, you know, like I've been just hassling my mom, you know, like she's out of money, I put my family in a bond.
Right. How long would you say you've been,
Like,
yeah.
it's like 24 hours.
Oh, really? So yesterday, let's say on Saturday, since today's Sunday, did you have any yesterday?
No, I didn't have any yesterday.
So how about on Friday?
On Friday,
Would have been 2 days ago.
2 days ago,
Yeah. You had some?
Yeah.
Would you remember what you had?
yeah, I took 10 milligrams hydrocodone.
Okay. And about what time of the day was out on Friday?
It was pretty early in the morning, 10 a.m.
Or 10 milligram hydro? At about 10 a.m.? Did you have anything else that day?
No.
Okay. Where were you when you did that?
I really don't want to say anything about that.
Oh, I'm not, yeah, I definitely don't, I don't want you to, I'm not trying to give you information about where you get them.
I just don't want to talk about where, as if I was at somebody's house.
Okay, yeah, because I'm not trying to get, I don't want to talk about anybody you do this stuff. Can you at least tell me, were you at your apartment on Santa Fe?
I don't believe so.
Were you at your mom's apartment on,
I was out on Friday, and I was on. That's what it feels like. I was on getting jammed all day.
Okay. You said you took them at about 10 a.m.
Yeah.
in Olney.
Yeah.
And what time did you come back to your stop loss?
Well, I didn't come back to Wichita till late that night, about 8 or so. I went to Olney from Wichita in the morning, and then I went and got pills, went back to my grandma's house, which I lived at 2203 FM 1285. About 5 or so, 5 in the afternoon, I went back to Olney, got a couple more pills, and then went back to Wichita about 8 o'clock.
Okay. And are you pretty much always, your only vehicle you drive is the Chevy Tahoe?
No, that's why I was telling the other officer, like, I had 2 sets of keys, and right across where that barn at 7-Eleven is, there's an empty lot that had like for rent, a bunch of boards. I had to pull my car in there because I've been driving over the radiator with some engine lock there on me. So I just started driving off of it here recently, last week, when I went on vacation. So.
Who's this? Is it yours?
Yeah, it's my mom's and in my name, so really I didn't know that it's my mom's. Like, I wanted them to be able to sell it and make money off of it.
So it broke down a while back, but you've been driving it for a week or so.
Yeah, I didn't really break down, but I just wanted to, it has a lot of miles and
Yeah.
stuff. I just wanted to,
When you weren't driving that, what were you driving?
the 2006 Chevy Aveo. That's like that, the crossing one, the 2006 Chevy Aveo. My dad got it.
Okay. It's where now?
Right where the 7-Eleven
Yeah.
Barnett,
Yeah.
just right across.
I know the building you're talking about, it's an old abandoned building, it's for sale.
Yeah.
So there's a vehicle sitting there right now, and that's, the other one, is it broken down or something?
Yeah, it's broken down, my engine locked up on me, so it's done, so I just left it.
All right, and that's when you started driving Tahoe,
Yeah.
a week ago. Okay. Has anybody else been driving it or anything, or is it, since, you're back and forth from Seymour to Olney
I
and
don't
Williams?
believe anybody else is driving the Tahoe. I do a pretty good job, like I kept in their car covered, like kept up with the spare key, make sure nobody had really access to it.
Does anybody else have keys to it or anything?
Yeah. I had a spare key like in my wallet, but nobody did.
Okay. So, today, I'm just going to I don't want to miss anything. So today you went over there, feed the dog, you went inside, you took your laundry in there, you left, and after about 10 minutes, and where were you headed today?
Pick up there's some pot on the east side of town.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Okay. And what did they arrest you for? Do you have any clue?
Like I had bought these brass knuckles at the West, it's called the Western Days Parade in Ringling, Oklahoma. That's where I went to school.
Right.
I was like 10 years old, I was in fourth grade, and these people sold me this pair of little black brass knuckles, but they said these are belt buckle. So if you ever get, in trouble, just know there's a belt buckle and they can get you in trouble. So I've always had that understanding. So I got something in, it's been 8, 10 years, and
And this is the first time you've gotten asked about everything?
yeah.
Huh. Well, that's crazy. Are there any other weapons or anything like that in your Tahoe?
No,
Nothing.
nothing.
Are there any firearms parts, firearms cases?
I don't have any
ammunition?
firearms.
Nothing. So there's nothing like that in your Tahoe?
No.
There wouldn't be anything like that in your Tahoe?
No.
Any ammunition?
No.
Any spent ammunition? No reason for that to be in there. You don't mess around with any guns?
I used to have my grandma's other down on, but my grandma's way out in the country. So I shot guns, and
How long ago?
the last time I shot was probably it was over a year ago.
Who's your what buddy?
Eric Blaze is his name.
Where does he live?
Lou. I really don't want to go
I'm not trying to get Eric in trouble.
no, I don't even want him to talk to.
So you shot some guns with Eric about a year ago.
Yeah.
Last time you would have even been around.
Right. I had, last time.
Okay. Were they your guns or his guns?
He had one of his guns,
Yeah.
which was a SKS,
Mm-hmm.
and I had 22.
Yeah.
That my grandma's both action.
Bolt action 22. Rifle?
Yeah.
Okay. You still have that?
Yeah, she said my grandma's.
And Seymour?
Yeah.
Okay. And you don't have any, when y'all were shooting those guns a year ago, what vehicle were you driving?
I thought it was my Tahoe.
You were?
Yeah. But like I said, I used to be able, kind of to get away with guns, but there was an incident that happened last summer where I had to go to a psych ward for 2 months. So ever since then, my grandma's kept the guns and stuff away from me, and nobody has let me have access to my guns or nothing like that. Like if they know what's up with me, they know not to do that.
Okay.
They know just to, treat me like I'm a kid.
Okay. The reason I'm asking you about this is on Friday, we had an incident here that took place in Wichita Falls that we're investigating where somebody fired some shots from a vehicle that matches the description of your vehicle. And were you around on Friday, or could that have been you and we're just...
I was in Albany, man.
All day?
Yeah, okay. Until 8 o'clock. I was in Wichita at 8 p.m.
Okay.
Evening.
And is there somebody that can, you were there doing drugs and stuff,
So
so it's not like...
I don't know about you.
Yeah, terrible.
I didn't give you the name of the lady's house I was at because she's kind of tied in, she's not on bad terms with the cars or nothing.
Well, go ahead, if you don't, go ahead and give it to me if you don't mind.
Casey Jones or Casey Calvin, which the first name, that's what I know about. Dewana Jones is what she's going by.
Okay, so you said Casey Jones, Casey Calvin, and...
No, Dewana.
Dewana.
The Casey's her middle name.
Ah,
Dewana Casey Jones or Calvin. So just know
is she white, black, or Hispanic?
she's white, but I wasn't doing drugs or anything. She just knows that I was there, man. She knows I was there.
How do you know her?
She's just been real good to me since I was 14 years old. I had a girlfriend that was a piece of crap, man, and I go to her, and she's helped me, so.
Okay. Do you know her phone number?
I don't know.
So you just try to find out Dewana, Casey Jones.
Yeah, she's the only person that knows I was an only man, so I'm not trying to rat her out on what I'm saying, that she
And
is.
you were there at least, we know you were there at 10 a.m., you're saying, and you said you were there until at least 5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there, I left, came back about 5.
Okay.
Then came to their stall after, like, I spent about an hour or two at KW.
Okay. So you're saying that this investigation we're conducting absolutely could not be you? Okay. Because, I'm just gonna be honest with you, in the area where you were seen coming from today is where the shooting took place. And, we have witnesses that have pointed out a vehicle that matches your vehicle's description. And, you know, maybe ironically, you kind of match the description of the suspect. So you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And this is, you know, this is a pretty serious situation we're investigating.
I know.
How do you know?
I mean, how could anybody not know? It's all over the news.
So you know what I'm talking about, right?
I know what I'm talking about, sir.
Where somebody got shot? Okay. And that wasn't you?
No, sir. I understand the description. I had seen the description and everything the whole time I was
You saw what description?
of the white man with
Right.
shaggy brown hair, and then they changed the description of the vehicle to a white vehicle.
Did you, when they did that, you know, it's kind of, I'm interested to know, when they did that, did you think about maybe raising a flag and saying, and getting in touch with somebody and saying, hey, that kind of matches my description, but it definitely wasn't me?
I mean, my mom asked me that day, she said there was a shooting by the house, blah, blah, blah. You know, I said I was in the Army, like I told you what I just told you, you know, I told her what I just told you about me being in the Army and everything like that. I said, my phone, I just was checking my phone, my mom texted me and said, so 2 girls just got shot right by blah, blah, blah. She said, where are you at? I said, I'm in the Army, you know. That's it.
Well, so that ought to be able to be confirmed through your phone.
Yeah,
That searching on your phone.
Absolutely. I mean,
What tower it hit and everything. What kind of phone do you have?
it's a Samsung Galaxy 4 Mini. It's the Mini version. But yeah, they'll be able to see that when I do text her and stuff. I was in home.
A Samsung Galaxy 4 Mini.
Yes, sir.
Is it in your vehicle right now?
Yes, sir.
What color?
It has like a bluish, dark, carbon type cover, black and
It's a black phone, but it has a blue cover.
well, not a cover, I just meant like the black, that piece of where the battery is kind of like a carbon fiber.
Does it have a password or anything?
No, sir.
No, sir.
So you just open it up and it unlocks?
Absolutely. Okay. Well, again, like I just said, if what you're saying is true, then it will definitely will have hit a tower.
Yeah.
Not in the area of your mom's apartment at that time period. Okay, so, you know, you know all about the shooting that I'm investigating, and you're saying you weren't here, you were on. You have to admit it's ironic that you drive a vehicle that matches the description and you match the description. Another bit of information is that did you, before I was ever involved in this, when you were just out there in the parking lot beside Bronze and you were speaking to a patrol officer, did you give them at least verbal consent to look in your vehicle?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. And one of them did?
Yeah, and they found those brass knuckles.
And do you know if they found anything else?
No.
Well, they found a spent .22 shell casing. Right.
Yeah, that's why I said my grandma she has a bolt action 22 rifle.
And so if that is found, I haven't actually looked myself, but if that's in there, then you're attributing that to this time in the past when you were with Eric Blaze shooting
Off the road.
off the road?
Yeah.
Is that what y'all were doing, shooting off the road?
Yeah.
So were you actually shooting from your vehicle? Or just parked on the side of the road and you got out of your vehicle and shot?
Well, to be honest, that day I was just the driver. I was letting him, he had never shot his SKS, so he bought from his uncle. So I let him go ahead and he shot a coyote. We were on the back road, we were on the main road. We were on the back road, he shot his one coyote, that's it.
So you didn't even fire your .22 that day?
He might have, though. I think Eric
since that day?
I haven't fired a gun in a long time.
And so you don't own any other guns?
I don't think so.
Okay. Are there any guns right now, in your mother's, Christy Rowland's apartment, 179?
I don't know.
You don't know, because it's not your
That's
apartment,
not,
right?
yeah, that's not my fault.
You don't know just right off the top of your head, though, that your mom or Brian has some guns?
No, I don't know.
Have you taken any guns and put them in there?
No.
Okay.
No, I just have one phone, sir. 923-2370.
Okay. 923-2370, okay. So there's no other phones in your truck, then, is that? Okay. Are there no other truck phones in your Tahoe, just the one phone? Okay. All right. You're pretty apprised on the case we're investigating, then, and you've seen all the posts, and you've seen all the
I've
news.
seen all about it.
What other vehicle are we looking for then?
So it's supposed to be a black truck with chrome running boards.
Right?
Yeah.
What can you tell me about that? Do you know anybody that drives a vehicle
Well, with no
that
chrome
matches
running
that?
boards, and I mean, I'll tell you that my stepdad does have a black Ford pickup, but it's been parked. I mean, you can ask anybody, you know, it hasn't like moved since they've been gone.
Is this Brian?
Yes, sir.
Where is it parked?
Right in front of their house on Calvert.
It's a black Ford pickup. Okay. And
Even if I would never use someone else's truck to do any kind of illegal activity.
of course not. Of course not. Do you have keys to that truck, or where are the keys to it?
You know, I'm sure it's withdrawn. Sure it's withdrawn.
Right. Did they drive through it?
Yeah, my mom has a little more decision.
Yeah, most likely, I guess there's no reason to speculate at this point, but is there any reason why Brian would take his truck keys all the way to Ruidoso when Christy is driving in a Honda Civic?
Is there a reason?
Yeah.
So nobody messes with his truck and stuff. I mean, that's how I am. I take my things and make sure nobody can you my shit. I mean, I'm sorry, but
That might be, yeah, I can see that.
You know?
Did you just have to learn the behavior from maybe some of the people that you end up
absolutely.
Yeah, you don't want to be around, leaving your stuff around people that you end up associating.
No.
Who do you, I mean, do you have some other friends that around here around in Wichita Falls with?
Not really in Wichita Falls, that's what I was telling the officer. When I first came to Wichita, I went out with all the guys over down on some of the Sputter and diamonds and stuff, and that, you know, they're doing 20, 30 years, you know.
Okay. Who do you go around with?
I'm isolated, man, like I'm 100% by myself. And like I told you, that's like that lady's the only person that I talk to and all.
Right. Okay, let me go back to that for just a second, because I'm interested in that. When you go to jail, you want to be by yourself,
Yeah.
and you're adamant about that.
I'm just trying to,
Why is that?
man, because I've been hurt, man. My dad, man, when I was young, man.
Your actual,
Yeah, my old dad, he used to do horrible things to me and my mom, man. He's a Satanist.
okay, I get that. I don't want to upset you, I don't want to go down that path, but you were abused by your dad.
Well, yeah, and I've seen that, like, there's someone that's ever so much me, I've never been, like, he stuck his hand down my pants when I was a young kid, but he never, like, sexually, had sex with me or nothing, but he, molested me, and then...
Which is just as damaging.
Yeah. I didn't know what was going on, and now that I look back on it, it's like, I'm already a little dude, man, like what else?
Right.
I'm not even a man, man, so, I'm trying to go in, you guys in prison and in jail, man, those are real men. And I can't go in everything. I don't know, I never go, man, I have to give up my trays and everything, man. So that's why I do, because I don't want to just give up my food and stuff, and stuff, man, I want to go to heaven or something, but...
Oh, yeah, I totally understand, man. For 3 years, I investigated crimes against children, and Detective Vermillion is currently assigned to that very unit right now. So we both have experience in investigating the stuff that you're talking about. We sat across from in the same room with lots of children that have been we've seen the scars that it leaves, okay, so I totally understand that, all right? And probably the last time you went to jail, that wasn't completely conveyed to the people that work at the jail, and we'll try to get that.
Like I was before, yeah, because now I've been to the psych ward now,
Right.
and they said that I had a problem and stuff.
Okay.
So that's, you know, and that, yeah, I just know, so I'm like, just put that off, because there'll be plenty of time to wrap my brain with those drugs that they do, because, to be honest, man, like, good or not, that's not good medicine. Like, that's just trying to, like, talk people out and make them stupid. Okay, the way I do drugs, man, it's like, you know, as I said, man, my dad is saving this, and I know, you know, it's worship, you know, so,
And that's the reason you need this other apartment.
Because my mom's actually worried,
basically to have some alone time, right?
yeah, because my mom's been worried about me,
And what's your apartment number over there?
213, and like I told him, like I do have a, well, not anybody, I have a knife there, and I have just a pipe, though, I was gonna say, it's a marijuana pipe, but I have a knife there also.
Okay. Are there, I'm gonna ask you the same question about over there, are there any firearms over there?
There's a large knife.
Okay. That's, you know what, I mean, that's.
I just want to be honest.
Yeah, I appreciate your honesty.
Because I didn't know I was going to get trouble for the brass knuckles like I was. I was really surprised for me, man. So now I'm just kind of like, I'm willing to cooperate.
And I'm not saying,
Any way possible.
I don't know the terms of your probation, but I'm not saying you're gonna get me in trouble if you have any firearms or firearms,
But I don't see
anything over there, okay? It's because it's in your apartment.
I know, right? I'm just saying that you can search that thing, talk about it. I'm not
You're not gonna have it,
You know,
okay.
I haven't had the money to buy a firearm. I haven't had the, you know, I've been honestly, like that's the reason I'm dressing up with a knife, because I have to have something to protect myself if I'm engaged in a altercation.
Well, you know, I'm gonna go back about down the path that we've been talking about here. You're saying that you are doing anything you can possibly do to help us and be cooperative in our investigation.
Absolutely.
And you get out,
As long as I, you know what I mean, because
I'll be honest, you are. But you know from everything before we ever came in this room that two little girls were hurt by somebody. And whoever did this, we don't want that to happen to anybody else. Probably, I mean, from my experience, whoever did this probably needs some help. Now, what happened to the girls is terrible, but whoever did this definitely needs some help, man. And I'm talking about some serious psychological help. And how are they going to get that unless we can find out who did that and help them? You're right. And, you know, and do you have any ill feelings towards, you know, other people other than your dad or anybody?
No, the only thing I was going to say is that my stepbrother, he's got long brown hair, and they did say something about he might come by and get a gun. I mean, you can confirm.
Your stepbrother?
Yeah, you can confirm that with my mom. My mom was over, yeah, she told me over text message, she said, Jordan might come by and get Brian's gun.
When was this?
It was when they first left. Yeah, she was telling me ahead of time.
Oh, okay. Did she tell you, like, when, you know, what day you were going to come by and get it, or what kind of gun it was?
She really didn't.
She just texted you.
This can be, yeah, I mean,
Your mom texted you and said Jordan might come by the apartment and get Brian's gun. And why would she do that? Why would she notify you of that? Like, do you have any idea?
I don't know. That's what, like, just, I don't know. She's not that type, man. She's very verbal. Like, she tells how she feels. She just tells what's going on. She likes to communicate.
Yeah.
So she just always tells me that somebody's going to come by.
Right. Now, Jordan, you just now basically told me, I mean, he's got brown hair.
He's got brown hair, long brown
Did you
hair.
see him on Friday?
No, to be honest, I didn't see him. I haven't seen him in a long time, man.
But it's possible he came by there.
Oh, yeah, and I've seen him driving my stepdad's truck when he was moving, and I said, you know what? Why is Brian letting him take that truck everywhere? I said, why does he trust him? Because he's going to tore up everything. Jordan tore up that. He has a little Acura. His dad bought him. His dad bought him a Blazer before because he was too heroin. So he broke that Blazer addiction when he was high on heroin.
Jordan,
Yeah.
used to do heroin? So, okay, let's talk about Jordan.
Yeah, let's talk about Jordan.
Where does Jordan actually live?
He lives off Seymour Highway in some apartment.
You don't even know where?
No, man, I really
What does he do? What's his...
He works with his uncle's Brian's plumbing.
Oh, Brian Rowland owns Brian's
No,
own.
no, his ex-wife's brother is Brian Walser.
Oh, all right. So that's not awesome. So Jordan works for Brian's plumbing now, that's all I do.
Yeah, that's his uncle, like his brother is Brian Walser, and his dad is Brian Walser.
Okay.
That's
Jordan Rowland, Brian Rowland works for, God dang it, Jordan Rowland works for Brian's Plumbing. You're indicating that he also has a drug problem.
He did.
What does he? Oh, he did.
Well, see, what he does now is that's stuff called kratom, which is supposed to be treated for opiate and heroin stuff. That you just go to Hot Wire or a smoke shop, and it's Kratom, Kratom.
You have just moved out of my area.
Oh man, I've never heard of it either. But he came with it one day, and all it is they put it in like an orange juice, and I did try it, and it's similar to opiate, but the next day you're sick, man, and it's really not worth it. But it's like it's legal, and he got pulled over with it, and they tested it, and because you have to get it from overseas on his website, it had amphetamine in it. Which is odd because it's supposed to be opiate, right? So they tested positive for amphetamine and went ahead and they seized his car. He just got it back. He was in, he just now signed, I think, for probation over all that. And like, so he's got his little share of the law. Like, I'm not trying to throw him under the bus.
I don't want him implicated.
That's what I'm saying. Yes, I'm just telling y'all about this right now. I'm just telling y'all who he is and what he does.
Well, it's supposed to wean you off of the opiates?
Yeah, like the stuff he does, yeah.
So it's kind of like methadone, it's supposed to just...
But I think it ends up pulling you just into it just as much, yeah.
So, Jordan, haven't talked to him in a while. Does he have any, even a fear that he might have been involved
To
in
be
this?
honest, I'll tell you right now, I don't know.
Really? Because, I mean, it's
just, yeah, I mean, like I was telling you, man, it's like, I know I wasn't involved, and I've been, I've been kind of down seeing that, but like I said today, man, like I'm not, like I said, you know what, like that description's similar, but you know what, I'm just going to go to my mom's apartment because I don't have nothing to be scared of. I didn't do nothing wrong.
Okay.
So I just went there about my business, and I got pulled over, and it really wasn't a surprise to me.
Okay.
I was like, okay, well, it was a surprise when they started going into that, and everybody started, it was a big ordeal, everybody showing up, and it was like the public hangings back in the day.
Yeah.
The black truck, is it broken down, does it work?
It works, but it doesn't have any chrome on it or nothing like that, but it's a solid black F-150, single cab.
It's not blocks or anything like that?
No,
Single cab. Okay.
no, it's just not.
Okay.
Is that the apartments now?
Yes,
Is that?
yes, sir. And like I said, I mean, that's my stepdad's truck and everything, and like they've been out of town, like I said, it's like, if anything would happen, with that truck, then I know that truck hasn't been driven, something wrong. I mean, like I said, because that's what I mean. I don't know if he leaves somebody, if he leaves Jordan his keys, I can't speak about it. That's not something I for sure know or for sure don't know. It's a possibility because I've seen him driving his truck before after moved.
How old is Jordan? I mean, you probably already told me.
Close to 30, like he's getting close to 30, 29, he may be 30. But he's in his late 20s or, he's
Is he married
or anything else.
No, he's not married. Okay.
That's why, I'm not trying to throw myself under the bus or nothing like that because I'm not that type of person to do that. But it's just like I've tried to seek out loyalty from him, and I kind of got screwed over. So it's just kind of like, did he also have problems with your dad? Well, see, we have different dads.
Never mind. He's Brian.
Yeah, so he's Brian's son on his own thing. My mom only has me with a man from Oklahoma.
So you're separate?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, again,
And the vehicle that matches the black truck description that you've seen them both in the news posts and stuff.
The description.
Ms. Shelton, let's stop it
We
there.
actually believe, and this is gonna be new information to you, but we think they were together. We think they were
We'll
there.
pick up after lunch with Officer Killingsworth's statement at this point.
How do you not believe that? Just because like my stepdad's had this truck's been parked there. I missed it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll take our lunch break now till 1:30. Please try to be back at the courthouse between 1:15 and 1:30. Remember my prior instructions to you, and be sure that Mr. Constant has your notes before you leave. Ladies and gentlemen, we're in recess.